product specialist with Korg USA. I'm very, very excited to be here. My first Patchwork Seattle Symphony. Is everybody having a good time?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, what's the deal with pulseless modulation, right? All right. That's the end of the comedy segment of the performance. But so in front of you have a lot of cool analog gear, a little bit of digital gear, and then some of our older legacy products that, if you get the chance, I highly recommend checking out because it's very interesting to see side by side how this gear has progressed over the decades. But I think one of the main acts that a lot of people have come here to see is the Korg Mini-Log, which broke ground earlier this year when it was announced and released as a 4-voice polyphonic analog synthesizer for a price point of $499. Now, never before has an analog synthesizer, a polyphonic analog, been offered at that price point with that many features. I mean, it's very not for function, it's very inviting. I mean, you just kind of want to go up and start tweaking as soon as you see it, as many of you guys have. And I encourage everybody throughout the course of the day to really check these products out, get a feel for them, and if you'd like to take some of them home, please see anyone from Patchworks about taking one of these awesome products home. So let's start first with the Korg ARP Odyssey. So a little bit of history. So ARP, from the Northeast United States, went out of business several decades ago, very unfortunately, with some poor investments in products that didn't really pan out. And most recently, Korg was able to obtain the rights to reproduce the iconic classic the iconic classic ARP Odyssey in a new, I believe it's 86% the original size. They were able to get the size down a little bit because the original is very big. It's a little bit ungainly. However, the circuit inside is incredibly faithful to the original. And it's still got those CV and gate inputs and outputs that let you interface with your Eurorack setup. And what I'm doing right now is I'm using a Korg SQ1 sequencer which outputs CV and gate, and I've programmed a little passage in. You guys might find it familiar if you watch that TV show Stranger Things. Right now I'm lowering the filter cutoff a little bit and introducing some decay and release. And now I have a pre-programmed sequence in this Mini-Log over here. So that's an example of all of these devices working together to make some really cool retro-sounding analog synth-based music. And if you're wondering how I synced all of that together, there's no MIDI involved here. And if you're like me, MIDI can be very confusing. You have MIDI ins, MIDI outs, MIDI throughs, MIDI through boxes, you have all of your different ports. And at the end of the day, you really just want to get down to making music and having your devices sync and play together really simply and efficiently. And that's why what I'm using to sync all these together is actually clock sync. So all of these Korg Volcas, these small boxes in front of you, have what's called analog clock sync. So what that's basically doing is there's an analog voltage that's going beep, 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 beep at the tempo that these devices are set at. And that's being transmitted over these 1/8-inch cables that you see all of these devices are plugged in together to the Mini-Log, from the Mini-Log, And then from the SQ1, that's the that's the main master clock of this whole setup. So I'm sending tempo data when I send that ARP, the gate, and CV to the ARP. And this is also sending tempo data to the MIDI log, and that's dividing the clock so I can send it to all four of these vocals. So I can have a cohesive tempo sync jam session without ever breaking out a single MIDI cable. And I personally think that's a lot of fun, and it's a lot quicker to set up. So let's talk about the MIDI log. The MIDI log really kind of speaks for itself, but for now I'm going to speak for it. The MIDI log is a 4-voice polyphonic analog synthesizer with 2 oscillators per voice, 2 envelopes, a noise oscillator, sync and ring modulation, cross mod, a 2-pole or 4-pole resonant low-pass filter, and you have some really cool features that have never before found their way onto an analog synth. For example, and I encourage you guys, it's kind of hard to see because you guys are all out there, but I very, very much encourage you to check out the oscilloscope, which will show you the waveform of the sound that you're creating in real time. So right now I kind of just have a basic saw kind of wave going on. And when I adjust the filter cutoff, you can actually see the waveform reflect that change that I'm making. If I introduce resonance, you can see it, the wave is kind of dancing around. And it's a very, very cool way to visualize what's happening when you adjust parameters in an analog synth. It's a teaching experience. It's a way to get better as a sound designer, as a synthesist. It helps me figure out what's going on mathematically behind the scenes of that waveform when I'm changing, for example, filter parameters, or I'm modulating one oscillator against the other, or any number of different things. So let's do some cool sound stuff with this MIDI log. I'm going to pull up an initialized program, which is just a straight up saw wave, and let's take it into sound design Shangri-La. I'm going to introduce some delay. So for all you sonic explorers out there, a really cool feature on the MIDI log is the ability to self-oscillate with a delay. And what I was doing there was I was sending a lot of audio to the delay and then turning up my feedback all the way so that that's going into an infinite loop and producing infinite harmonic content and infinite repeats for that delay. And it's kind of a grainy, lo-fi style analog modeling delay. So you can really get that kind of tape saturation sound that so many people are already applying to their analog synths using external modules or pedals or whatnot. Let's go through some of the programs on the MIDI log, and you can see how the voice modes on the MIDI log really contribute to its power. So right now I'm sequencing the MIDI log with its built-in sequencer. It's a 16-step sequencer, but you can really unlock additional power to the MIDI log sequencer by changing the clock division in the ARP sequence if you sequence an arc, you can get longer chord progressions out of that arc than just those 16 steps. If I open up an init program again, I can show you some of the powerful voice modes that the Mini-Log contains. First off, you have your standard polyphonic mode. But what's this knob over here on the right? Voice mode depth. What's that going to do? That's going to deepen the voice mode? In different voice modes on the Mini-Log, there's different functions to the voice mode depth knob. So for example, in polyphonic mode, I can play a first inversion major triad. If I adjust the voice mode depth knob, that first inversion major triad goes through several different inversions. It's those same three notes, F, A, C, played in a major triad, but they're in different inversions. Now let's check out the second voice mode, duophonic mode. Now duophony is something that's found, for example, on the Arab Odyssey, when you split its two oscillators. But on the Mini-Log it's very unique because duophony means two stacks of two clusters of 4 oscillators each. So because the Mini-Log is 4 voices with 2 oscillators each of those duophonic voices in duophony mode, let's call it, has 4 oscillators stacked against each other, which is pretty fast. Just the voice mode depth knob while I'm in duophonic mode, I can detune those oscillators against each other. Now unison mode. Let's stack all 4 of the Mini-Log voices together for a really fat unison sound. This 4th voice mode, monophonic mode. Now that's a pretty standard mode for an analog synth. However, in monophonic mode, the voice mode depth knob brings in a much needed sub-oscillator. So that's for your Moog style basses. So if I enter monophonic mode, that's really neat. That's a fat bass right there. We get a little bit of volume. So you get some really classic Moog sounding basses with that sub-oscillator in there. If I go to Korg mode, now we have polyphonic mode where changing the voice mode depth knob will invert your chord so that you don't have to worry about complicated music theory. You can still worry about complicated music theory because that's important. However, if you'd like to play one key and have a whole chord play, you've got that too. I'm going to enter chord mode. It starts out at a 5th, right? And I can go through every chord you could possibly imagine. delay voice mode. Now this is a very uncommon voice mode. It hasn't been on a lot of analog synths. What basically happens in the delay voice mode is the 4 voices of the mini log are used in succession to create a delay-like effect. When you play a note, the 3 remaining voices will repeat after that note in decreasing amplitudes. So if I play a simple line like this, there is not an effect delay, that's literally the analog voices of the mini log playing, repeating and decreasing amplitudes after the first note I play. I'm going to skip arpeggiation for now and go to sidechain. Now sidechain is a very interesting and innovative voice mode because what this is for your basses or leads where you're playing a lot of notes in rapid succession, so you need the previous notes that you played to duck out of the way, like a sidechain when you play the next note. So it's a little hard to hear with all this background noise, but if you would like to hear the sidechain mode, I encourage you guys to come up and check it out. What's basically happening is when you play a note and then you play a rapidly succeeding note, the next note will lower the amplitude of the first note played in a sort of sidechain fashion. So you kind of have notes ducking out of the way so you don't muddy up a unison or kind of a monophonic bass line or lead. And now, of course, the arpeggiator. There's lots of modes to the arpeggiator. What I like is tempo syncing the delay to the arpeggiator. And of course that arpeggiator can be divided in any manner of divisions to your clock input or output. So those are the 8 incredibly versatile voice modes of the Korg mini log. And if you have any questions, I strongly suggest that you come up and try it out for yourself. Try out that arpeggiator, that sidechain mode, and especially check out the oscilloscope. And if you'd like, I can show you a cool Easter egg that happens during the mini log's tuning protocol. Anyway, I want to thank Patchwork so much for allowing Korg to do this. Thank you so much for watching. I wish everybody an amazing rest of your Seattle Synth Week. Have a great time and check out some amazing sounds and synths. Thank you so much.
All right, let's hear it for Korg. Thank you so much. That mini log sounds pretty awesome.